couple of things. Human nature, I don't think improves. It's static. It's fixed. And
Biologically entrenched.
Yes, yeah, biologically. People are predictable. I'm a Thucydidean. He said, my history is going to be valuable because people in the future are going to be like us, and they can learn lessons in this context that they can apply to their own context. So that's one thing. And we are the beneficiaries, no doubt about it, not just of technological constant advances, but also of moral improvement. So we don't have slavery, for example. But I'm not at all confident that I'm not a Whig historian. I don't believe that there's a natural order of progress that can be defined by century upon century upon century. So I'll give you an example. We just got through an epidemic that killed 1 million Americans. It was done through American people in our government who routed money to Echo Health because it was illegal to pursue gain-of-function research, who gave the expertise that helped the Wuhan virology lab, which soon became under the auspices of the People's Liberation Army. From what the Sunday Times said in London this week, that group of virologists was experimenting on gain of function to probably create a bioweapon, and it can't be proven. But they were experimenting with gain of function viruses that were much more lethal than SARS-2. And if we can use the same train of thought and apply it to artificial intelligence. So there was just a experiment that the U.S. Army released that a artificial intelligence program was built in to protect the weapon, the missile weapon, from being knocked down or to be destroyed prematurely before it hit the target. And in a simulation, the programmer or the director of the missile that was fired in a computer simulation pushed the kill button to stop it, to abort the mission. And the missile came back and reprogrammed itself and killed him because he was considered an outside threat to the mission. And they didn't realize that had not been part of the program. They didn't even think that would be possible. So what I'm getting at is when you look at virology or artificial intelligence and you add in mixture, human nature, I think that we are capable right now to surpass the gates of hell at Auschwitz easily. They had Zygon gas and a bankrupt racial theory. But I don't know what the theory behind the virology lab in China was, but they were also, according to Stephen Quay, who just testified before Congress, they were also working on vaccines that might have been DNA-based. So they were thinking maybe there were some people, not the whole lab, obviously, but were thinking of a bioweapon that could be unleashed that would not attack their own population to the same degree. So we're getting into areas now that the ancients had no idea of the capability. And whatever we say about the past, they didn't have the technology or maybe the desire to destroy all humankind. We do. The other thing is that I think we have to separate technology from culture and society. And I've read Steven Pinker's various theses. I think, he obviously he doesn't think there's a contribution of Christianity, but it does seem to me that when I go and I travel a lot. So when I say in the last 3 years, I've been to downtown Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, Washington, Baltimore, New York, Milwaukee, and Los Angeles and San Francisco. And I had been in those cities 10 years earlier. If I was a person from another planet and I had a series of criteria, do people look at you and say hello to the same extent they did 10 years ago? Are the streets cleaner? Or the homeless treated better or worse? Is it safer or more dangerous? Or there are greater variety of shopping when I go in and I need to get a quick prescription? I go to a drugstore. Are things locked up like a prison infirmary, or were they open and accessible? Then I think by any measure you could say that that's a retrogression. We're in decline, despite all of the accumulated wisdom. And so I think history is like this, and I don't see any reason why, unless we invest in civic education, morality, and have some sense of transcendence, that each person understands that there's something other than themselves. You can define that either, like planting a walnut tree when you're 90, so your grandson will have walnuts, or your son will have walnuts, or you can believe in the Christian idea or religious idea, but you don't have any sense of transcendence, then I don't think you have any moral bearings. We have a lot of people that don't believe they're transcendent. They're fixated on life extension or cosmetic surgery, or they think they can defeat the odds and live forever, and it's not going to happen. But so I'm kind of skeptical about that. And I feel that one of the reasons I wrote the book is I thought we were in one of these periods of regression. And I think it was safer to walk the streets of America 20 years ago than it was now. I think people were kinder than they are now. I think racial relations were better than they are now in 2000. I think the students that I had were much better educated than now. I think if you're graduating from Stanford University this year or next year, you're going to know a lot less than you did a graduate 20 years ago. And that graduate was probably going to know less than somebody in 1940 that graduated. I can see it in my own discipline. When I read an article written about the ancient world in 2022, and I look at one that was written in 1940, 1950, and I look at the level of scholarship, knowledge of the classical languages, it's not even close. These articles today, and these are with the aid of computer searches and all sorts of research techniques that were unavailable. They're not even close to the level of scholarship or erudition. So it's a mixed bag. I'm not, Horace said, every generation thinks that they are birthing a generation worse than they are about to birth a generation worse than themselves. Or I think he also said we're all laudatores temporis acti, we're all praisers of a age that's past, reactionary nostalgia. But there is something, I think it's very important to have that attitude, because we all have some kind of commitment or obligation to the generations before to continue the system and improve it. And just one generation fails that commitment and things fall apart. One of the things you hear from people on the left, right, Democratic or Republican, is they cannot believe how quickly things have deteriorated since 2020. And they can cite all different reasons depending on their politics, but they agree on one thing. They did not understand how fragile the United States was. And nobody in their right mind in 2019 or 18 who was walking at 1:00 in the morning in San Francisco, in a bustling, happy city with commerce and safety, can believe what's happened so quickly. And I get this comment from people who are on the left, I get on the right, I have different reasons for it, but they agree that it's downhill.